Welcome everyone to our class on in-depth study of the Torah through the various levels that we're, Baruch Hashem, able to open up because of the great Talmidei Chachamim that has showed us the way. All the way back from Moshe Rabbeinu till the present time, people have been looking at the Torah and explaining all its intricacies, and we're watching that movement and trying to understand how the system works. So we're up to what we call level 4. Level 4, we spoke about the Chumash, the Pesukim themselves. Then we went to the Mishnah, and we saw that the case we're dealing with, which is Meitav, saw that case where you have to pay the best of your land, is spoken about in the Mishnah as Meitav Haaretz. And then we went into the Gemara, discussion of Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, and we came to the position that we're talking about how the mazik pays back for his damage with the best of his field. And then we went to Abaya's problem, which was that this pasuk now impacts on another pasuk that says Kesev and Shav Kesev. And we went through then to the 4 different answers, ending with Reb Papa, making money the essence of what we have to do, and anything's closer to money, that's what you're going to have to give. So you give Kesef or Shav Kesef. Shav Kesef is very close to money because you can always get your money back, and land is further away, so there has to be a distinction made there between the best of your land and regular land. The best of your land, because it's desirable, will compensate for the lack of customers. And then we went to Rav Huna and started to investigate him, and he put land on the top and said that money is equal to land. And then Rav Nachman said to him, wait a minute, if money is equal to land, then Shavi Kesef is equal to land also. And again, we're back with the buyer's problem, how to give the best of land. And when it comes to metaltalin, you can give out the absolute worst. So his answer, that's Rav Huna's answer, was a different answer, and he said, well, money is equal to land, but if you don't have money and land, then you can give the nizak your metaltalin, and he'll have to accept it. Isn't that obvious? Well, the answer is no, because maybe you think the Torah told him, Mazik, go sell your stuff and then give the money to the nizak, and the answer is no. B'diavad, if you don't have money or you don't have land, so you can give metaltalin. So that was the level of the Gemara, stage 3. Now we're in stage 4, and we're going to investigate the major Rishonim here that we're going to be dealing with are the Rif, the Rambam, the Ramah, and the Rabbeinu Tam, and of course Rashi, but not in the same way. What do I mean? We're going to be looking at the halachic aspect here, because we said we left off with 2 positions in the Gemara that were different and were not eliminated. The one of Reb Papa and the one of Rav Huna. Both those positions stood. No one was sotered. No one knocked out those positions. So we're going to have a halachic problem here, which is, in the end, you have to know what to do. Torah is not nice, interesting ideas about different aspects of damage and how you pay. It's a practical reality, which comes down to, what do you do, Rabbi? Do you pay with Kesef, Shavi Kesef, or Meitav, or no, Meitav and Kesef, and some, if you don't have, which is the 2 positions that we said very simply is Reb Papa and Reb Huna. So now we have to come to a conclusion, and that's what this next level is going to be speaking about. We said that there's 2 types of Rishonim. certain Rishonim are going to deal with the daf itself and show us the internal mechanisms going on in the debate on the daf. Of course, Rashi is the king of all the Meforshim. He's in his depth and his clarity of presentation. His grandchildren, the Rebbeinu Tam, are also on the daf, and they were also explaining the daf, but they emphasized the place that we're in on the daf in relationship to all of Shas. So they're looking for the broader relationships, and we're going to be investigating that today, Bezrat Hashem. And then we said the other type of Rishonim, more in the Sephardic school, are interested in halacha. We said the Rif was the first one to give us a abbreviated summary of the page. In other words, not a summary of the debate, but just the conclusion. That's how he wrote. He wanted to know what, like over here, you have to say, well, what is the conclusion of the Gemara? The Gemara is a document that's leading to a final decision. If it's left open, it means that we missed something here. So he's going to tell us what the final decision is here, and that's his general style. The Rambam, we said, goes off the page completely and does a Mishnah Torah, a whole reorganization of the material. And we said the problem with that is finding out why he holds his opinion, because he's not conveniently on the daf where the problem is happening. And also we have the Ramah, who's going to be here telling us a third position, which in a certain way is a little even more surprising. So that's going to be our work now. In this fourth level, we're going to watch the great Rishonim interact in daf, and they're learning the daf like you and I learned the daf, lahavdil, of course. And we're going to now see what they saw and what they concluded. Okay, so the first one is the Rif, and we did that a little. We started with the Rif last time. We did a little Rashi, but just to refresh our memories, very, very important. The Rif says, in summation of the problem that we're dealing with, or of paying with best of your land as opposed to money and to subin, metaltal, he says like this: this that we need to pay with the best of our field and the best of our land. This verse is only talking about when you're using land to pay back the damages that you did. When you use land to pay back those damages, you have to pay with the best of your field and the best of your vineyard. Aval iyihiv le metaltale kol mididihiv le metav nenu v'filusubin. If, however, you decide, which is your choice, that you want to pay back the nizak with movables, so then there's no distinctions to be made. You don't have to give him the best movables. Whatever you give him is called metav. There's no grade A, grade B, and grade C when it comes to metaltalin. Why is that true? Because if you can't find someone to sell it to here, you'll find someone to sell it to somewhere else. So that's the factor that makes all metaltalin good. The fact that you can get your money back. So we said money, of course, is good because it's the most fungible or liquid asset that you can have. After all, you want to replace the cow or the field that was damaged, and money's always good to do that with. If you want to use metaltalin, says the Rif, well, metaltalin is always good. There's no such thing as good and bad metaltalin. Well, we said psilocybin, we know there's something that's not called good metaltalin. Well, even the bad metaltalin is good in the aspect that we're interested in, which is paying the nizak. So we say that's because you can always get, the nizak will get his money back pretty quickly. So the Torah extended the din from kesef, we said, to metaltalin, and said even that the mazik can use to pay back the nizak. How do we know? Because we have a brisa that says that Tanya kesef yoshiv l'ba'alav v'rav shavi kesef afilu subin. So we see that the brisa says that since the pasuk said kesef yoshiv l'ba'alav, it should have said kesef yishalem kesef l'ba'alav. The word was extra, so it came to include shavi kesef afilu subin. And the Rif is telling us, what does that mean? Shavi kesef afilu subin. It means there's no gradations of shava kesef. Everything is called good. And the svara being that you can always get your money back. Now, that's the first part of the Rif. So the Rif gives us, as we can see here, a very brief summary of what the actual halach is according to the conclusion of our Gemara, at least the first part of our Gemara. Now, he brings up a problem here. He says, Va'afal gab de Rav Huna v'Rav Asi, even though Rav Huna and Rav Asi argue with this concept that you can give money, shavi kesef, without any distinctions, and only the best of your land, equally, A, B, or C, Rav Huna argues because he says that shavi kesef is only if you don't have kesef, if you don't have the kesef or the best of your land. However, says the Rif, Kaimalan, Karav Papa, Rav Huna, Bered Rishua, the Basrai Nehu. The halacha is we hold like Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Bered Rishua because they were the blessed authorities. Okay, so we had a little chart here. It's a nice little chart to note. Here's Rav Huna from Bavel. Here's Rav Asi from Eretz Yisrael. They're very, very early Amoraim. The Rav and Shmuel are on the border. Sometimes they're considered Tanayim. They can argue, but they definitely, it's the first real generation of Amoraim. We're holding down here with Rav Papa and Rav Huna Bereda Rav Yeshua. They're after, maybe 100 years it looks like, or something like that, about 100 years, maybe a little less, but that's our discussion over here. And Rav Papa is, and Reb Yeshua and Reb Huna Reb Yeshua are over here, so they're the Basroi, they're the later authorities. Okay, and of course Rabashi, they're the ones that put together the final composition that we have called the Gemara, and the rule is that when it comes to Pesach halacha, we go according to the later authority. So that's what the Rif says. That's what the Rif says. Okay, 2 points. One, that only land has the distinction of best, and you can use the best of your land and metaltalin without any distinction, and money equally, and that's according to the Pesach of Rav Huna, Rav Papa and Rav Huna Rav Yeshua, not to be mixed up with Arab, and that's number one, and number two, that's the Pesach, because they are the Basroi. These are earlier generations. We always go halachically to the last. Then last week we did a discussion of Rashi, okay, which I'm not going to go through all of Rashi, but people basically tend to say that Rashi, if the rule is, we learned in Darkei Gemara, that Rashi, when he gives Peshat in the Mishnah, prefers to give Peshat in the Mishnah according to the conclusion of the Gemara. So in our Mishnah, he said that if you want to pay in land, then you pay with the best, which sounds like Reb Papa and the Rif, which basically means if you want to, you don't have to. You can pay with metaltalin, you can pay with kesef. So those were Rashi's opinions. A very interesting analysis inside in the text, which shows the deeper relationship between those parts. Now, let's do today Tosfos. Okay? That's what we're up to.
Yeah.
So Tosfos. Now remember we said that Tosfos is okay. The Rabbeinu Tam is Tosfos had, excuse me, Rashi had two daughters, and that children. One of the daughters produced Rabbeinu Tam, and he had a whole school, and that school also lasted quite a while, with two basic centers, one in southern France and one in Alsace near Germany. So let's see what they say. Now our Tosfos is of course, at the end, the Tosfos that we have is again going to, much like the Gemara of Rina Rav Ashi, is going to now bring down the debates that went on with the Bali Tosfos, and they're going to bring what the Bali Tosfos said and what Rabbeinu Tam specifically said. So let's look at that. So let's make this a little interactive, and we'll put you on here.
The reading seat. So Rav Huna Amar O Kesef O Meitav.
Very good.
What does Pehe mean?
Perish HaKuntris. Kuntris means little pamphlets, because Rashi created these little pamphlets. That's Rashi. He doesn't even mention his name because I think it's like too holy, you know. It says in the little books. Okay.
In the little book. So Perish HaKuntris Shabbat Taretz Kakare de la Oyo. So the explanation of Rashi is that this comes to explain or not to explain.
To explain, exactly. To
explain the Torah.
To solve, to resolve. I'm sorry.
To
resolve the above psukim. In other words,
two psukim.
Okay. Now, which psukim? Let's look at those psukim again. Again, we have to keep all this material fresh in our heads. Rashi said, here's that Rav Huna Omar, right? On Peitet, Lo kasha kroidolel kesev umeitav. That's what he said. Rav Huna said, he said, O kesev, O meitav. What did he mean by that? O kesev, O meitav. So Rashi is telling us that he's coming to answer the problem of the pasukim that we brought above. And we noted here that the pasukim we brought above, Rashi says, kesev and meitav. Now, but what pasukim did we bring above? Rashi above, when he was handling the problem, actually just right after Abaya tried to explain the contradiction, Rashi said, Makol makom kasha meitav v'yoshiv, demar basubin. Up above, Rashi explained that the problem was meitav and yoshiv. Meitav, you have to give the best of the land, and when it comes to Shavik Kesef, you can give the absolute junk. So that's the problem. How come in land you're required to give the super, super best, and in movables you can give the worst? I mean, what's going on here? The best of the land, even land, simply speaking, is even better than Metathlon. So you told, when it came to adding land, the Torah said the best. And when it came to, and that's what the Meitav pasuk is talking about, when it came to adding Shavik Kesef, it said even the worst. Well, this is our basic contradiction that we've been struggling with. So that's the basic contradiction, and Reb Papa explained it, because really we had to switch a premise that land is worse than Metathlon, and just like we brought in the Rif, when the Torah said Metathlon, it was good because it's very like you get your money back, it's close to Kesef, and land is not, so it goes for the best. That's what we answered over there. Rashi now says, Rev Hun is coming to explain the collision between the two pasukim, the difficulty we have with these two pasukim above. There he says Kesef and Meitav. So it's very, very, we spoke a little about it, but it's very, very important here. What is the starting point of the problem? And what did Abaya, when he started the problem, how come he left out Kesef? And he said his problem was only between Meitav Karka and Suvin. Okay, Rashi's telling us that what Rev Huna wants to speak about is the other relationship between Kesef and Meitav, because that pasuk also conflicts. In other words, we didn't think when Abaya brought up his difficulty that there was a problem with Kesef and Meitav. We thought that the only problem was between Meitav and Shavik Kesef, right? So what Rev Hun is saying is, gentlemen, there is a problem between Kesef and Meitav. Okay, so we got into this last week. A very, very important thing is what is called a starting point. Where do you begin? So we always presume that Kesef was the best. So we presume that Kesef was the best. So then the only problem is, how come when it comes to non-Kesef items, land and metaltalin, there's this discrepancy? That was our problem. That was Abaya's problem. We always thought land was on top. It was not an issue. Rav Huna now wants to say that it is an issue. And we also are medayik in Rav Huna that Rav Asi said Karka is like Kesef. So you might have thought that you could only use Meitav in the world of Rav Huna. So therefore, we needed a Chiddush that said even Kesef. Okay? I hope I'm reawakening this discussion. Okay. Yeah. So now the important part here is the starting point. If Kesef was not an issue with Abaya, right? That was Peshita. The only problem is the non-Kesef items. So we have to now reconcile the two non-Kesef items, land and movables. And we had all different ways of reconciling that. Okay. But now Rav Huna says to us, gentlemen, that's not the starting point. If you start with Kesef not being an issue, so then you only have a problem of what factor makes land and metaltalin like Kesef. Okay? We had all sorts of different answers until we finally came to Reb Papa's answer. But if you're going to say that there's a possibility that Meitav means not Kesef, so then you're starting with a different understanding completely. Okay, so in other words, let's spell out a little more. It depends what pasuk you're starting with. You start with the pasuk that says Kesef and Shavik Kesef. So Kesef is the most understood. Okay, and then Shavik Kesef is a addition, and then Meitav is an addition to that. That we can put together because we started with Kesef on the top. But if you're going to start with Meitav on the top, so then you have a different understanding completely. We're not talking about money and what's closer to money. We're talking about a different issue, Meitav. And the Chiddush is that Kesef is like Meitav Haaretz. Okay, so we saw that Rava, for instance, had an understanding like that land was important not because of its fungibility or its convertibility or its fluidity, that you can get cash for it, but that it's the dearest thing that a person has. He doesn't want to give up his land. So that's why if you were, says Rava, the first Rava, that if you're trying to just bother the Nizak, so you're going to run the chance of losing the very precious thing that you have, which is land, real estate. So you better make sure that you really, really didn't do the damage, because if you go to court, we're going to take that away. So that's a different, that was a different appreciation of the starting point. His starting point was Meitav Haaretz. That's, wow, you stand to lose that. If you just confess, then we'll let you use, things which are not as dear to you, which is money and Shavik Kesef. That was his starting point. Of course, he was knocked off. Why do I bring it up? Because you have to explain now what Rav Huna's starting point is, right? Why did he put Meitav on the top? I just gave an example of how Rav did it. Well, he doesn't say very much here. He says, let's start with the pasuk of Meitav Sadeh and Meitav Karka, and lo and behold, unlike Abaya, he's not eliminating Shavik Kesef, he's eliminating Kesef. And he's saying Meitav Sadeh In and not even Kesef. Okay, that's a different aspect of the relationship between the two. So let's say, just unless you have a better idea, let's say it's called what's the most desirable. What does the what's the most desirable loss to the mazik? You know, I was thinking outside. I mean, anyway, you're welcome to just pop in and just, you know, say a svara. But I was thinking another possible svara could be of Rav is that he wants to make sure that people guard their property. That would be his understanding. The Torah wants to make sure that people are really careful with their property. So they say, look, you know, if you lose if you damage your friend's property, you may lose your best property. Forget about court or not court. It's a new position. Okay, but just that you stand to lose a very, very dear part of your your physical property if you are not careful. So that would be a reason to say that Meitav, In, and even Kesev no. If you were sloppy and you didn't take care, well, you have to suffer the consequences, and that's Meitav. Okay, so that's what you might have thought. So then the Torah said, "We'll allow all money." So now, what does it mean to allow money? How did that change the understanding of the Torah now? Okay, how now that you can use money also as an alternative? Okay, now what will we say? Why money? Okay. So really it could be, I mean, I don't know, we have to now think. That's why I always said every time a move is made, it changes for the best word that I can find, the philosophical understanding of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. Okay? It changes the reason that the Kodesh Baruch Hu is doing it. After, what are we trying to figure out? Why does he say Meitav Karka? If he said money, no one would have been too worried about it, okay? But since he said Meitav Karka, the whole issue here is why Meitav Karka? So every time we make a new relationship between, like here with the Kesev and the Meitav, so a new message now is being formed, and we have to understand what it is. Okay, you with me? So if we start with Kesev, I can understand Meitav. Okay, want to make sure that people are very, very scrupulous and not take chances with their property. Fine, but he says Kesev. Okay.
Yeah, we mentioned last time that we wanted to refactor in the Svara Chitzayna, that Kesef is probably the most natural thing to pay with. And since it said Meitav, so that would exclude the Svara Chitzayna, and then he wants to bring it back in.
Yeah, but now in that second position, may I ask, okay, in the second position that he did bring now Kesef in, it's true that he wanted to factor in the Svara Chitzayna that he knocked out, okay, but now what is the conclusion? Why only Kesef and Meitav, you see? Now what message does that broadcast to you as a person who wants to understand Hashem's words, you see? What's the new message now?
That it excludes Yoshev.
So the new message is that, but I mean, what I mean the new message is, what do we learn from the fact that Hashem says Meitav Karka and Kesev and not Sheva Kesev? What do we learn from that? In other words, do we say, Reb Papa had a great svara, you know what I mean? We're interested in getting the money back to the Nizak as fast as possible, okay? So now what's the svara here that the Torah said Kesev and Meitav and you can't use Sheva Kesev? What's the Torah trying to say there? Oh, maybe... Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the main problem with Sheva Kesef is that it's there's a bother in getting it exchanged into something more liquid like money. It's just the most bothersome of the three.
Okay, so now what you're saying is a new understanding that Meitav, you'll be able to, let's say again the svara is getting your money back. Hashem wants to guarantee that the Nizak gets his money back. So now you're saying with Kesef, well, that's the goal of the whole thing. Meitav now turns out to be something that the people around you will definitely buy, and you'll be able to get your money back. But the Shavit Kesef, you have to now schlep from here, schlep from there. It's true you'll get your money back, but, at a cost. So it's better to get the local yokels excited and get your money back than have you schlep the subin all over the place. Okay. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to formulate. In other words, you can't keep this as a symbolic logic here. These are just elements A and B and C. Every time we move an element and we combine it with another element, there's a new message that comes out. And I think that that's very worthwhile to consider, because if you don't have that aspect, so then you don't hear the message. You hear the technique, but not the moral of the story or the message of the story. Okay, so I thought that was interesting. We started off with an idea of Meitav being some sort of knas, make sure that you don't do damage. But then we said, well, that idea has to be changed because Kesef comes in to be an equal partner. That was the Chiddush. So now that's a Chiddush. So now what's the new understanding here? So we jumped back and we said, well, it means you're going to get your money back, okay? And you don't have to go far and wide to get it, which is different than, of course, Rav Papa's svara. Okay, he would say that they're equal, and Rav Huna would say they're unequal. It's the excitement of the meitav will get you your money back without the tircha of running here and there, and that's why the Torah did it. Good, fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we're noticing here in Tosfos is he first quotes Rashi, and he tells us that when Rav Huna said, O Kesef O Meitav, Rashi means that he's trying to explain the problem of the Pesukim above. Not the same relation, those Pesukim, because we were only worried about Shavit Kesef and Metaltalin, but a new relationship of Meitav and Kesef. So he had it was the two Pesukim, but with a different aspect. Okay? Now, you'll remember that what happened was Rav Nachman raised his hand and he said, Rav Huna, if you're going to say Meitav and now Kesef, so you're going to have to include Shavit Kesef because it says Yashiv. To which Rav Huna replied, that Shavit Kesef is only B'dolei Slate, Kesef and Meitav. Okay, so now let's look at the comment of the Balei Tosfos. What do they say here? V'tzarech lomar.
Tzarech lomar shelo hispik l'sayem dvarav al shehiksha lo.
Ad shehiksha lo.
So we have to say that he, I guess it's Rav Huna here.
That's correct.
So we have to say that he didn't finish his sentence, as it were, until, well, what does that mean? What do you mean? I mean, until he made a difficulty for him. But who's making it? Rav Nachman is saying
Rav Nachman. You see, Rav Huna was going to explain these two Pesukim.
He was going, right. So he was going to go on and talk about Subin. He was going to talk about Shavit Kesef.
Right.
But before he could get to it, then Rav Nachman interrupted.
Right. He was a very active student, and he could not hold himself back. But Rav Huna should have said, relax, take it easy. I'm getting to that point. Okay, it's a quite obvious point, and I'll get to it. Go ahead.
How does Tosfos, what does Tosfos say, is it Tzarech Lomar? How do we know? Like, why is it necessary to say this?
Because really, Tosfos is bothered with the following question. Why didn't the Gemara record the complete statement of Rav Huna? Let's put it better. The two Pesukim conflict, right? Now, we said that there's according to Rav Huna, there's two conflicting elements. One conflicting element is the Meitav and the Kesef, and the other conflicting element then will be the Shavit Kesef and the Kesef, correct? In other words, there's two levels of problems. How do we put together the Meitav and the Kesef? And then how do we put together Meitav Kesef in relationship to the Shavit Kesef? Correct?
Was that obvious? I just don't remember Rav Huna's words now.
Oh, let's look at
obvious
Rav
from
Huna.
his words.
Yeah, let's look at Rav Huna. Let's not guess. Let's not guess. Let's go back to Rav Huna. Where is he? Where are you, Rav Huna? Okay, we can find Rav Huna by clicking on Rav Huna, I hope. Let's see if the magic works. There, I clicked on Rav Huna. Will he magically appear? Okay. Ooh, there he. Oh, we almost had him. We almost had him. There he is. Wow, isn't that the modern technology? You don't have to have it in your head anymore. Your eyes can just see it through a click. Okay, let's read Rav Huna again. Again, we always have to understand that basis, the raw material before we understand the commentary. So read this Rav Huna.
Rav Huna Amar O Kesef O Meitav. A Sivi Rav Nachman. So he says only that the Sivi Rav Nachman, the Rav Huna. So Rav Nachman answered him or
asked the kasha.
Asked him. Yoshev lo Rabba Shava Kesef Afilu Subin. So he says there's the word Yashav in there, which came also to include Subin. That was
the teretz of Rav Huna.
Yeah, what are we doing? What are we dealing with? What's b'deleisle without?
When you don't have
when you don't
kesef
have
and meitav.
Right, when you don't have kesef and meitav.
So the Gemara said either less like Peshita, and then we said no, Zil Torah Zavin.
So how do we know that Rav, just from these words, how do we know that Rav Huna was going to talk about Shabbat Kesef?
Okay. We know because Rashi said that Rav Huna was coming to explain the Pesukim that we brought above. And since that was his goal, to explain the Pesukim that were brought above, you have to have two statements. One, the relationship of Kesef and Meitav, and one, the relationship of Kesef and Meitav to Metaltalin.
Okay.
You with me?
Yeah.
So that's what Tosfos is saying. If, according to Rashi, it's Rashi who starts the ball rolling here. Okay, he's telling us what is the goal of Rav Huna. So he told us, the goal of Rav Huna is to answer the conflict between those Pesukim. So Tosfos strokes his beard and he says, "Wait a minute, Rashi. Now, if that's the goal, it must mean that Rav Nachman interrupted him because we really don't have the full explanation of the two Pesukim until we get the answer of Rav Nachman, right?
Right.
He wasn't going to tell a half idea.
Right.
Okay. Now, the reason why Tosfos is doing this is because there's an alternative explanation of Rav Huna. I'm bringing it to you now, so you'll see the depth. This is what Darking Gemara tells us to do all the time. If they're speaking, it's just like the pasuk Lafuke Esfer Chitzona. So Rashi's also Lafuke Esfer Chitzona. What does that mean? Other people want to learn that Rav Huna is talking about the Mishnah, not about the Pesukim. The Mishnah said that you pay with Meitav Haaretz. He says the word Meitav. So he said, don't think that's all you can pay with is Meitav Haaretz. Kesef is an equal alternative. So his aim was not to explain the Pesukim. If you're going to explain the Pesukim, so then you have to explain all the Pesukim, and you have to say that Rav Nachman interrupted him. But if you're going to say he's explaining the Mishnah, so he's just adding to the Mishnah Kesef, and he's not involved with the conflict of Yoshev and Meitav. He doesn't have to be. Okay.
But it doesn't make.
Yeah.
But since in that reading, since Rav Nachman asks him the question, and he seems quite. I wouldn't say just prepared. Obviously, he's prepared to answer it. But it seems to flow quite naturally, that question and then the answer. So then it seems like he is on the page, and he's looking at these two psukim.
Not really. I mean, again, this is the debate. He could be just talking about the Mishnah, and Rav Nachman asks him a kasha about Subin. how could you just say that but it's really a question on the Mishnah. How could you say the Mishnah is only giving us these two alternatives, Kesef and Meitav, when we know that the Pasuk says Subin? Okay, so in other words, but there you don't have to say that Rav Nachman interrupted a discourse of Rav Huna. Of course it follows. These people they're just like you're asking questions that are very logical. They're asking questions that are very logical. Of course the question of Subin follows. But it's not an interruption of Rav Huna. It's an addition to Rav Huna. Once I tell you that Meitav is Meitav and Kesef in the Mishnah, so then you'll ask me, well, what about Pesukim? Okay, fine. Now I'll have to explain to you about Shavuot Kesef. But if you're coming to explain the Pesukim above, so then you didn't do the job by saying Kesef and Meitav, because we know that there's the Pesukim themselves shout out that there's three elements there: Kesef, Meitav, and Shavuot Kesef. Right? So you have to explain all three.
It's interesting because if you take that approach, then this might be, I'm not sure, but wouldn't it be another explanation for why Rav Huna comes much later and quite disconnected from the whole earlier discussion, because that really places Rav Huna's position before the Rumya. And the whole Rumya was the two psukim. So if they're saying, look, this is really a commentary on the Mishnah, and then as an afterthought, Rav Nachman says, oh, by the way, do you remember there's this Rumya issue with this other pasuk which contains the word Yashiv, and the question is there, even there, as Rav Nachman is asking his question, the word Kesef is not even an issue, because Kesef is already implied in what Rav Huna is saying in his commentary on the Mishnah.
Right. So now this,
see what I'm saying?
Now 100%. Now you yourself, Baruch Hashem, are getting involved with exactly the problem of the Rishonim. Okay.
So is that an option of how to read it then?
Yes, 100%. This is exactly what we're saying. That's what they're going to say. I mean, that's what the Tosfos is going to do. The Tosfos is going to bring up the two ways of understanding Rav Huna. According to the second one that he's on the Mishnah, so that's not a problem. It's a different issue altogether. It can be later, you see, because that wasn't the issue that was presented. The presenter was having a problem with Pesuk, Abai and Rav were having a problem with Pesukim. Okay, how come you should, there's also a problem with that reading too, because you should have spoken about the Pesukim first and then talk about the Mishnah second. In other words, even Rav Huna should have spoken about the Pesukim, and he didn't. It's sort of left out of the discussion. But whatever, at least if you move Rav Huna to the Mishnah, then you don't have to have him directly involved in the debate that Abai and Rava were talking about, which is how do you read the Pesukim. Okay, you have room then to separate the two issues. Of course, there'll be a juncture of the two. We'll have to talk about exactly where they shine, but you save yourself the position of Rashi, which is this really is a continuation of Abai and Rava. You see? There's another answer. This is the fifth answer to Abai and Rava. If you remember what Rashi said, you see what Rashi said here?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, no, I have a different piece of paper.
You have to bring it to the discussion.
I have to bring the other paper here.
Yeah.
Rashi said here, lo kasha kroidel el kesef v'meitav. The hachik omar rachmana o kesef yiten lo o meitav sadeyo. Now, what did Rashi say here? Because he put Rav Huna into the question of Abaya and Rava, albeit through a slightly different emphasis, but Rav Huna is really in that question of Abai. He's a fifth answer. So Rashi had to explain, wait a minute, how come he's quiet until now? There's a whole middle piece of the Gemara about do you pay subjectively or objectively? It goes on to almost like a page. How come the Gemara waited all the way till the end to bring the fifth answer? They should have brought the fifth answer immediately. So Rashi explains, well, we had to finish up our discussion of the Brisa of Rebbe Kiva and Rebbe Shmuel. And once we did that, then we get back to him. But really, And that's what Rashi says. Mishum the boil sukkah b'milta the Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Akiva, the boil el kashem shavin, shalohem shavin, or the olam shavin, yeah. But ad hacha kamari basel, and the argument and that clearing up that point of who you have to pay by, which was another aspect of Rabbi Yishmael's and Rabbi Akiva's argument. In other words, when you say meitav, is it meitav objectively, subjectively? That had to be solved before we can bring Rev Huna. But you see, that's a dochek also, you see. Rashi was forced to explain that. If you're saying that Rev Huna is talking about the same issue as Abaye and Rava, so then you have a problem. Why did the Gemara have this page of discussion before they brought him? They should have brought him right away.
Yeah.
But if you're going to learn that Rev Huna is now talking about a new issue, which is the Mishnah, not the Pesukim, so then you don't have to worry so much about why he was left to this point, because now there's a different issue. What does the Mishnah hold now? Even if there is a big machlokus in the Pesukim and how to learn them, well, is there anything in the Mishnah that will tell us which way to go, for instance? Okay. So, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Is it a general, assuming, now just going with that reading for a moment, just wondering how that reading comes about, the one that focuses on the Mishnah. Is there a general rule in approaching Nezikin that when we're talking about payment, that kesef is always a good default position? Because where would he be pulling out that meitav and kesef, or meitav is equivalent to kesef? Well, unless there's some kind of hidden assumption.
Well, hold on. You see, again, it depends if we're holding now that Rav Huna has a problem with the Mishnah, and he's not dealing with the Pesukim. The Mishnah says you have to pay b'meitav haaretz.
Yeah.
It doesn't say another alternative.
Right. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking why would Rav Huna say that kesef is equivalent to meitav unless there were some kind of assumption, some kind of default assumption throughout the Mishnah or throughout Nezikin that
you say, what's his source? What's his source?
I mean, in other words, he's not if it's a commentary directly on the Mishnah and he's not even thinking about the other pasuk at that point. So why is he saying kesef? Why is he mentioning kesef? It's not because of the pasuk. It's because there seems to be a default position.
Well, again, we're going to have to be a little careful here. Of course, everything the Mishnah is doing is coming because of the Pesukim. It's not divorced. Where does the Mishnah know what to pay with? So there is a relationship between the Mishnah and its source, the Pesukim. But the question is, what's your starting point? Again, starting points are very, very important. If your starting point is the Mishnah, so then you can explain when the Mishnah said meitav, it didn't mean to eliminate kesef. How do you know, you asked? Okay, now we'll get into the Pesukim. I'm not adverse to talking about that, says Rav Huna. Okay, of course, because that's how I learned the Pesukim. Kesef is equal to meitav. And now we have a problem, of course, what's going to be with Shavit Kesef. Well, we can discuss that. You with me? It's just that it makes the Gemara, in other words, number one, the Mishnah has a source, okay, and Rav Huna has a source. But if he's talking about the Mishnah, so he's saying, don't read the Mishnah that the Mishnah is learning the Pesukim to say meitav and nothing else. Don't learn the Mishnah that way. Now we'll discuss how does the Mishnah know, and we'll discuss the Pesukim. That's fine. But the discussion here is focused on what's the Pesach in the Mishnah. Now, if that's true, that's different than Rashi. Rashi says, no, Rav Huna is not talking about the Mishnah. Rav Huna is talking exactly about the same problem that Abaye brought up. This has nothing to do with the Mishnah.
Right.
So if that's true, then Reb Nachman is interrupting him because he never really explained all the parts of the Mishnah, of the Pesukim. But if it's talking about the Mishnah, so Rev Huna is talking about the Mishnah and saying the Mishnah means not exclusively meitav but kesef. And now Reb Nachman brings up the source, and he says, wait a minute. Now, if that's true, that's how you're learning that the Mishnah understood the Pesukim. Then what do we do with Yashiv? Okay, so it's a different beginning point. Yeah, of course, we're going to touch bases. We're going to be touching all the bases, but from a different place. And then what do we gain by saying that? Then we don't have to say this excuse of Rashi that, well, we had to clear up this whole discussion of Rebbe Kiva and Rebbe Shmuel and about who the money is from. You save that step. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
But I can already anticipate, I think, another problem, which is, see, the strength of Rashi is that he's positioning the whole thing within the parameters of the Rumia, right? That the whole thing is within the Rumia. So if you're putting it in the Mishnah, you're saying, no, this is before the Rumia. It's not. If you're looking at when Rav Huna is looking at these two psukim, he wasn't seeing a Rumia. He wasn't seeing a conflict between Kesef and Meitav. So of course, now the problem is, according to the principles that you're teaching me in Darkei Gemara, is then, well, wait a minute, then why do we have two psukim to teach the same thing?
Yeah, but hold on. When he says, "Oh, Kesef o Meitav," he's not talking about the pasukim, Rav Huna, according to this new position. He's not talking about the pasukim at all. He's talking about the Mishnah.
But the question would still be, in his reading, why would the Mishnah use? Well, why would the Mishnah use one pasuk, refer to one pasuk Meitav, and not explicitly refer to the other pasuk, which includes the words Kesef?
That's a very good question. You're going to have to ask according to everybody.
See, but it's also, but even then from the standpoint of the Mishnah, I mean, there has to be a certain economy in the whole situation, right? That the two psukim independently have to have a teaching. So the Rumi just takes care of that very nicely by saying, well, there's two different standpoints here. But if according to this reading of Huna, so the Mishnah itself is not seeing two different standpoints in the psukim. I mean, in a way, it doesn't have to. This is why I kept using the word default when referring to Kesef. Because if the Mishnah can assume that Kesef is a default position, so really fine, it is a way of shorthand. It really doesn't have to mention Kesef. We know the pasuk is there, and we know the pasuk is going to cover the default position. But then it's going to create a problem for the. It seems to me, at some level, I don't know how, but it's going to create a problem for the Kra, because then you're going to have two psukim that are saying the same thing.
That I don't understand. Let's go slow. Say that the Mishnah's Chiddush, like you're saying. Okay, we have what's called background information called Kesef. Let's say that's background information. That Kesef is always good. So the Mishnah is telling us a Chiddush when it comes to Nezikin, you have to use Meitav. Okay,
but then Rav Huna is destroying that Chiddush, according to this reading. What's the Chiddush? If the background position is Kesef, it says Meitav, so what's the Chiddush there? I mean, we can use Kesef anyway, according to this reading of Rav Huna.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. So now, you're good. So why did you have to say, oh, Kesef or Meitav? Because he's trying to prevent us from an error. Maybe you would have thought maybe Meitav and not Kesef. You see, what's in the background is not is an area that we have to investigate here. I don't know what's so pashit in the background of Kesef. You see, maybe in other words, the Mishnah says Meitav. The question is, why did the Mishnah say Meitav? Okay, so one position is because it means Meitav in and nothing else. The only thing you can pay in damages is Meitav. And you know something? If you don't have Meitav, so then maybe you can use Kesef and you can use Shava Kesef. Maybe that's what the Mishnah is saying. And Reb Huna wants to enlighten us that that's not Peshat. But you could learn that way. The Mishnah says the only thing you can pay back with is Meitav. Right? So you say Kesef is Peshita. Right? Who says? Maybe Kesef can be given when you don't have Meitav. Maybe. I'm just saying, why did Reb Nachman have to come? Yeah. Reb Nachman has to come because the Mishnah just says what it says. It says you have to pay b'meitav haaretz. That's what it says. Now, what does it mean? So you're saying, well, it's obvious that it was Kesef has come to tell you when it comes to Nezikin, you have to pay b'meitav. So then you say, wait, so then what is Reb Nachman adding? So I said, wait a minute, that's only one way to read the Mishnah. Maybe the Mishnah is saying what Rev Nachman is trying to save is the Peshat in the Mishnah, which says you can only pay in Meitav. What happened to our background Svar of Kesef? My friend, Kesef, just like Shavik Kesef, is only B'dolei. So maybe only when you don't have Meitav Aretz can you fall back on Kesef and Shavik Kesef. But if you have Meitav, you got to give it. As we said, you know what I mean? It's a very, very, we want to make sure that people don't harm other people's property. So Hashem says, Meitavin, Mida Achrina Lo, yes, if you can't give. That's a possibility in the Mishnah, no? So there, Kesef is not a known, and Meitav is a Chiddush. Kesef cannot be used, you might think, if you just read the Mishnah. Because that's all, the Mishnah doesn't say any wet Kesef. How come? The Mishnah didn't know about
Okay, so then in that reading, so then Rav Huna, again in this one reading that he's commenting on the Mishnah,
right?
So he'd be saying there is actually, even though the Mishnah is giving us this chiddush that we have to pay with meitav, nevertheless there is, based on this other pasuk, there's another possibility. We don't have to, you know, it's kesef. If you pay with meitav, you can also pay with kesef, which is why we have this other pasuk. I'm just wondering. So then it's going along with what you're saying. It's not redundant to have a pasuk that says kesef. Even before I know Reb Nachman has this third problem of shava kesef, but I was just trying to understand how Rav Huna, according to this reading, would be understanding kesef in the Chumash itself.
Can't use it l'chatchila. That would be the Havamina. I mean, you're talking about the Havamina or the Maskana. In other words, if I didn't have Rav Huna, what would I think? Before, what was Rav Huna trying to tell us? He says, don't learn the Svar Chitzona that it's Meitav, In, and not even Kesef. Okay?
Right.
But it means even Kesef. Now, why would you have the Svar Chitzona that means only Meitav and not Kesef? We know the Pesukim. Because, as we said, you have to give the best, which is your meitav. If you have it, you have to give it. And why isn't kesef there? Because kesef is only b'dolei slei meitav. That's how you would read the Mishnah. Everyone knows you can pay in kesef and shavik kesef and meitav. The question is the relationship of the three elements. So if I only had the Mishnah, Rav Huna is saying, look, you know, don't read the Mishnah to say l'chatchila you can only give meitav, and if you don't have it, you can give kesef and shavik kesef. Don't read the Mishnah that way, because the fact is that kesef is equal to meitav. That's the chiddush says kesef is equal to meitav. They're both chatchila. What do you do with shavik kesef? That's the one that you can't give l'chatchila. It's only b'diavad. But as far as the Mishnah is concerned, it wasn't coming to eliminate kesef. It was coming to it wasn't coming to eliminate kesef. It was coming to really eliminate shavik kesef when it said meitav aretz.
Right.
If you want to mamayit something from the Mishnah, don't mamayit kesef. Mamayit metaltalin.
And then, so in that case, the Nachman would not be interrupting him, or rather.
Okay, well, that's a little. Let's work this out. I mean, let's work it out. It's not so simple.
Right. What I hear what you're saying. Can you try to explain a little bit more? What's except for this difference, I mean, Rashi, because Rashi is seeing Rav Huna as being squarely within the Rumia issue, right? So because of that, so he has to come up with a stylistic explanation. He has to come up with a kind of literary analysis and say, okay, you know, why is this coming later on? Because we have to finish the discussion with Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel.
Right.
So he has to explain it. Now, if we take the second reading option, which is that no, that Rav Huna is really commenting on the Mishnah. So okay, we've eliminated that whole need to explain the gap that Rashi has. But besides that, let's just put that aside for a second, because what's not clear in my mind yet is what is the nafkamina between the two readings apart from this question of style?
Beautiful. There'll be a tremendous, as we go, I mean, you're right on the ball. And the answer is because we're going to see, when it comes to Pesach Halacha, who we go according to. That will be the difference. If this is part of the discussion of the Pesukim, then Rav Huna is brought last. But he's in that discussion. So then you're going to have a problem what the halacha is, like Rav Papa, who's the Basroi, or from the last person mentioned, whoever got the final word, because Ravina Rav Ashi put Rav Huna last because tell you that's the final word.
Well, so then the Rif is not going to have his proof. That's what the Rif was saying, right? The Rif is saying because he comes last, we go with him.
No, the Rif said we go according to the later authority, even though Rav Huna is last. Since Rav Papa is a later authority, the halacha is like him, even though the Rav Huna is last.
Right.
And even though he's an earlier authority. It's a lot of even those. Okay? But that's the difference in halacha. If they're all involved in the pasuk, then the halacha should really be like Rav Huna. I mean, he's the last one who speaks. Okay? So maybe you'd give more authority to him. Well, no, we have a rule that no matter what happens, we go over to the last person, right? So Tosfos will say, hey, according to Rashi, maybe the halacha is like Rav Huna because he's the last one on the floor. Even though he is not the Basroi, the fact that he was brought last is a indicator that Rav Rina and Rashi want to Pesach that way. But if you're going to learn that Rav Huna is on the Mishnah, so then you have no more proof anymore about first, last, in the wrong position, nothing to do with it. He's talking about a different starting point. Now you're much freer. Now it comes to the halachic decision, you're free. You can see the halacha could be like Rav Papa, it can be like Rav Huna. You're much freer in your in the Pesach world. Okay, you're going to have a problem still, who to hold like. Okay. But in other words, go ahead.
But I still have this, I'm not sure, I still have this problem. Maybe it isn't the problem. Maybe this, I'm missing, like I'm not getting it here. That consideration still seems it's still extrinsic to the possible nafkamina. Like I'm asking whether Rav Huna is commenting on the Mishnah or whether he's joining in the discussion on the Rumya. What would be the difference in his reading? Like what would be, because either way he has to say, he has to deal with the basic issues of what is the chiddush here, what's the chiddush of the Torah, what's the chiddush of the Mishnah. So I'm just, it's a question of, I don't get it. I don't get what would be the difference in the content.
Look,
of these two
the
readings.
bottom line is that they're going to have different views about the relationship of Kesef, Shavit Kesef, and Meitav. That's the bottom line. That means that all four opinions, ending with Rav Papa and Rav Huna, will all have different opinions as to how those Pesukim work with each other. That's the bottom line. Okay. The only question is why the Gemara presented them in the way that they were presented. That's the problem. Now that is also going to be that will also impact on what we think that the Gemara is telling us the halacha is. After all, the Gemara should not have left two alternative positions not under attack. The Gemara likes to bring things to conclusions. It's like Shulchan Aruch, it shows you all the facets of the argument, but then does bring conclusions, okay? Like Rav Papa was not knocked out, that's a conclusion. So the fact that this Gemara left itself hanging is very, very problematic. So we're going to try to figure out why the Gemara did that. Look, there's even a possibility as we go further in this the Rush is going to bring, that Rav Huna is not arguing at Reb Papa B'chlal. Even though he has a different starting point, he's really Reb Papa, and Reb Papa's not arguing. In other words, that's how far things are going to go. Okay? But that's what we're involved in. What can I tell you? In other words, there's 2 points here. What is Rav Huna's position? Is it truly a fifth position? The Rush is going to give us a possibility that it's not. Okay, but we'll have to wait till we get there. That's one thing. Is he arguing or not with Reb Papa? If he's not, then we don't have anything to worry about. We'll just go according to the Basroi. But, or he's modifying Reb Papa, whatever, we'll have to discuss that. But if he's not, if he is, arguing Reb Papa, and they are all talking about the same issue, so then we're going to have a very, very serious halachic problem here. I mean, we have a problem reading the Gemara. Why did the Gemara leave 2 open-ended positions? That's the problem in learning Gemara. Why did Ravina and Rashi do that? I mean, look, it's only 1 page later. It's not like another Gemara even. They did this all very consciously. It's very, very structured, very organized. And why did they do that? Why did they leave a position hanging there? So the way Rashi wants to handle it is that really they just had to, the Gemara sometimes likes to say, it likes to finish an issue before it goes on to a new answer. And that's how Rashi answers. Don't take it so seriously. They just wanted to finish this issue of how do you pay, and then they brought Rav Huna. Don't take it that seriously, Rav Huna is arguing at Reb Papa. Okay, so we'll have to explain that, but other people want to divorce it completely. Okay, we'll see. As we go along, we'll see better, okay? We're just, everything will start getting more and more clear as we start getting involved more deeply. But this is the issues that they're talking about, okay? The one is Reb Papa and Rav Huna arguing. 2, why is there a break before the time we get to Rav Huna? 3, how does that impact on the halacha or not, okay? These are the issues that Rishonim are going to deal with. Again, that's the Gemara's, their text. They're trying to understand not only what it means, but also what's the miskana. You see, they have both those issues at heart here, Okay, Beseda. So let's just get a little more. As we get a little more educated, we'll be able to feel those problems and maybe to get clearer on exactly how they're putting together the Gemara and coming to their conclusions. But here we see definitely that Tosfos. First of all, we have to make an observation that Rashi is definitely putting Rav Huna in the discussion of the Pesukim. He's not talking about the Mishnah B'chlal. He's in that same discussion. And he says, don't worry about this tangent. That was just to get rid of, to complete the discussion of Rev Yeshua and Rev Yishmael. But as far as the issue of the Pesukim, Rav Huna is right there. Okay? So Tosfos says, well, if you're going to go down that line, that Rav Huna also was discussing the Pesukim, then you're going to have to say, according to Rashi, another little uncomfortable statement. That really Rav Huna was going to answer all the problems of the Pesukim. He started with Kesem and Meitav. He's going to talk about Yashiv in 1 second. And was rudely interrupted by his student who was very, very excited and jumped in. Okay, that's not so Noach. I mean, that's not, after all, the Gemara is not writing a court record, and he said this and he said this and he yelled at this point. The Gemara is already writing it so that every generation will now know how to gather the dynamics of the Pesukim and come to the halacha. So the fact that Reb Nachman was a little nervous that day, you could say, okay, sometimes the student is so excited and he caught what was going on. It's not impossible to say. But when we're adding up points of how to read this and we want to find what is the real meaning, we're going to try to pick the meaning that has the less points against it. That's what, you know what I mean? So Tosfos is saying, look, Rashi, I understand what you're saying, of course, and we're just adding another little problem to what you're saying. It just makes it a little more difficult because now you're going to have to say that Reb Nachman really interrupted the discussion of the Pesukim because without the pasuk of Yoshev and Meitav is not the end of the end of the Pesukim. Okay. Now I wanted to answer here a little, if you can bear with me, Rev Huna has a slightly different, even if he's talking about the Pesukim, right? He does have a different starting point than Abaya. And it was very important that he presented that starting point because, as I tried to show, your starting point sets the hierarchy, and that's going to affect what goes in and what goes out. So what I'm trying to say, it's through the observation here in Rashi himself, the different starting points I think is very significant. You could say that they're both talking on the Pesukim, but Rev Huna has a different starting point, and Rev Nachman didn't catch the starting point. Okay, he didn't understand that that was a different starting point. Or he had a kasha on that starting point. Maybe that's even a better way to say it. He says, Rev Huna, how could you start that way to equate Kesef with Meitav? If you start that way, then you'll never, then you're going to have another difficulty. What's the difficulty? That you're going to have to bring in Shavik Kesef immediately.
Well, Nachman is the one who seems to bring Rev Huna into the discussion.
No, Rev Huna is talking about the Pesukim. He has a different starting point. And Rev Nachman questions that starting point. It's not so simple. We have to think about it. It's not so simple. It's not so simple. But we have to think. I mean, there's no way out here except to think. Rav Huna says, "O Kesef o Meitav." Okay, and let's say he's talking about the Pesukim, but he wants to talk about it from a different starting point. So Tosfos says, "Wait a minute. If he really wants to talk about the Pesukim, and in the end of the day, there's two problems: Kesef and Meitav, and Kesef and Shavik Kesef. So then, why did Reb Nachman just relax and wait till Rav Huna finished his discussion? What did he jump in for?" Okay, that's what Tosfos says. He says, I find that another weak point in Rashi to say that Rav Huna is talking about the Pesukim that we were just talking about with Abai and Rava, because if so, then Rev Nachman should have understood that the next phase was to talk about Yoshev, and he just should have held his horses. Okay, so let's leave that issue. Okay, we're counting up issues here, and each one has to be thought about it. There's no, you see, the problem. I have a very good friend. He's a rabbi in America, but he had a yeshiva here, and someone asked, "Why don't you do iyun in the yeshiva?" You know, the Ashby yeshiva, we always did iyun. That means we always considered the depth of an issue. That was the style that came from the Shivas Chafetz Chaim. So he said, "I don't have the luxury to do iyun." What does that mean? It takes time. I must think. To get deeply involved in core issues requires to burn a lot of wood there, and it takes time. There's no shortcut. Okay, if you're the Vilna guy, you'll do it a little quicker, but a little quicker. But there's no substitute for thinking, and that takes time. So if you're teaching a class of 30 people, and some of them hear 3 words, some of them 7 words, some of them 150 words, some of them don't hear at all. So you have to keep the thing moving. You have to keep it moving, so you keep everyone happy. You have to get a middle between getting involved and getting a surface level and going on. But there's really no substitute to thinking here. All these people are thinking people. And the difficulty is that it takes time to think about what they're saying. There's no shortcuts. There is no shortcuts. So people do shortcuts and they end up with symbolic logic, which is, I don't care what you're talking about, but if, you know, if all is B and C is an A, then C is also B. Okay. 3,000 pages of deep thought. It's not so simple to deal with. But anyway, there's no substitution for thinking. And the issues can be understood, but only when you are mindfully involved with the issues. It means you're really, really thinking into it. And Baruch Hashem, I mean, that's what it is. That's one of the goals I have in presenting this material. I'm not trying to teach you a course in how to read the Gemara and the language of the Gemara and the history of the Gemara. I'm trying to have the appreciation of the depth of thought and how to touch it. Okay, so let's go a little weiter, because I want to show you that these problems that you're bringing up are really the issues on the floor. Okay, and we're going to have to think about them because that's what they're thinking about. Okay, so let's go a little, we're in Tosfos. We only read a little line of Tosfos, but Tosfos says, Rav Huna Omer O Kesev Meitav, he quotes Rashi, that Rav Huna is also coming to Metaretz, the Pasukim that we brought above. Now, if that's true, that he has to Metaretz the Pasukim have two parts. You can start with Kesev and Meitav, but you have to end up with Yashiv if that's where you're trying to do. If that's true, so then you have to say that Reb Nachman interrupted him before you can explain all the Pasukim. Okay? Now, what does Tosfos say in the next piece? But the Istigar say Oma Rav Papa. What's the difference between a Girsa that says Rav Papa Omar and Omar Rav Papa? So the rule is like this, that if you put the Omar before the person, it's starting a new issue. But if you put the Omar after the person, he has another opinion about the previous issue. Okay? So Rav Papa says this, and Abaya says this, and Rava says this, and Rav Huna says this. You see? Yeah. Omar, that would be Rav Huna Omar. But if you say Omar Rav Huna, that's a introductory statement. So there's certain people that have the text of the Gemara. It doesn't say Rav Huna Omar, which is Rashi's text. They have a text that says Omar Rav Huna. V'koy amas nisan. And therefore, since it's a new issue, the starting point is not the Pesukim. The starting point is the Mishnah. The Tanya, no, it's the Tanya. The Tanya should have said B'meitav ha'aretz. The Mishnah says B'meitav ha'aretz. V'omar. Go ahead.
Can you just talk, what's Amas Nisa?
Koi means present tense. It means that, and means on. It's referring to the Mishnah. It stands on the Mishnah. Koi is just present tense, and it's on the Mishnah. Okay? So if you have the girsa that says Omer Rav Huna, which means it's not a continuation of another opinion of the arguments we just had before, but it's a new beginning. So then those people who have that girsa say it's talking about, it stands on the Mishnah, because the Mishnah said Meitav ha'aretz. Va'omer Rav Huna, and Rav Huna wanted to explain that when the Mishnah says Meitav ha'aretz, the lav dafka meitav, ela o kesiv o meitav. Don't think it means only meitav in the Mishnah. It means kesiv or meitav. So if it's on the Mishnah, so then we have a little bit of a separation between the Mishnah Psukim, and Reb Nachman says, but wait a minute, you have to get to the Psukim after all. It's very nice. It's very nice you say meitav. Includes kesef, but now let's talk about because once you do that, then there should be a third labdafka in the Mishnah, and that should be shavak kesef. So it not only left out kesef, but it left out shavak kesef. By the way, we learned a rule. I don't know if I learned it with you. Wow. We learned a rule in Darkei Gemara, by the way, interesting rule, that everything, when you say A, B, and C in a Mishnah, three elements. So did we learn together that the Tanoim are not like Rochlim? Did you remember that statement? I don't know if I did that with you with another student. Okay. The Tanoim are not like Rochlim also. They don't just, Rochel is a person who sells his wares. He has 50 watches. He has 50,
yeah, I remember that.
Right? Okay. Oh, we did it at the end. We did it real quickly. But it really,
yeah.
Okay. But so they don't just, say the same, thing with variation. Okay. If you have 50 watches, this one's a little different than this one, but it's a watch. What's the difference? It has a red band, a green band. Okay. But the Tanoim are not like that way. Each element has to be a chiddush. You can't have two watches. You have to have a watch, and you can have a computer and a pen, but you can't have three watches. Okay. So, but he says over there, if you watched, we did very quickly. He said there is a time that you could say that a Mishnah is lav dafka if it brings a list of things, but and the Gemara will ask, my shire to har shire. In other words, when it brings a list, say it brings a list of 20 elements, okay, 10 elements, 5 elements, okay. If it leaves out one, the Gemara says, wait a minute. The rule is it will never leave out one. If it wants to make a short list, it'll leave out 2. But it'll never leave out 1, okay. One is, it's again, non-economical to leave out 1. So you'll never have a short list that leaves out 1. But you can have 2 or more. That's fine. But it has to be a minimum of 2. They just didn't want to say every single case, okay. But they'll never leave them not just 1. So over here, according to Reb Huna, the way Reb Nachman is learning Reb Huna, he's saying, hey, they left out kesef, right? I mean, Reb Huna is saying, it says meitav, but it means meitav or kesef, right? So the rule is you don't leave out just one.
They left out Shavah Kesef.
So exactly. No, they left out. No, let's go again. All the Mishnah said is meitav.
Ah, right. And there's 3 items.
3 items. So if the only thing that was left out was kesef, then they would have had to put it in. So it had to leave out 2. Okay, I don't know if that's going to shine in here, but anyway, I just thought of that. So because in the end of the day, they're going to leave out kesef and shavik. According to Reb Huna, if he is on the Mishnah, then there's 2 things left out of the Mishnah. And even according to Reb Papa, there's 2 things left out of the Mishnah. If the truth is Reb Papa, right, that you can use meitav and shavik kesef and kesef all equally, if the truth is that way, right? So then the Mishnah left out 2 items. It said you can only pay with meitav. Why did it do that?
But are these really items of? I mean, of course they are. I mean, you could read them as items, 3 items on the same list. But I would have thought that one way, at least this way of reading Rav Huna that he's commenting on the Mishnah, it's not that we're talking about 2 different items, but rather that there's an equivalence. So he's saying it's like i.e. you can pay with meitav, i.e. silver, money. You see what I'm saying? Like it's not necessarily 2 items. He's just saying, by the way, it's equivalent to money. So the Mishnah just left that out.
The way Tosfos writes, though, is lav dafka. See what he said? V'omer Rav Huna lav dafka. What does lav dafka mean? Lav dafka meitav.
Not only, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. In other words, you can also use kesef.
Yeah.
That means the Mishnah is not being exact. He's not trying to add, like we were trying to say, well, you might have thought only kesef. If you're dealing with the Pesukim, you have to deal in that world, which is the Chiddush and which is the Chiddush on the Chiddush, and how does it eliminate, how does it come back in. But now we're talking about the Mishnah. Now, does the Mishnah work the same way? The Mishnah says Meitav Haaretz. So Rav Huna, according to this reading of Tosfos, I'm just saying what they're saying. Rav Huna is coming along and saying, don't think the Mishnah means only Meitav. It means Kesef or Meitav. So he's making the Mishnah Dafka. Normally you'd also want to read the Mishnah like the Pesukim. It says Meitav and that's the only thing you can use. It says, no, relax, it doesn't mean only that, it means Kesef. So Rav Nachman says, if you're really going to make the Mishnah Lav Dafka, so then add in Shavik Kesef too. Because that's also equal to Kesef, we all know that.
Yeah.
So he says at that point the Mishnah is Dafka. In other words, not the Mishnah, the Mishnah left out Kesef, but would never have included Shavik Kesef.
That would be Rav Huna's response.
Wow,
right.
That's a little bit
right.
That's a little bit strange, though, isn't it? If it's on the Mishnah.
Why? No, because
of course the only thing that was written there was Meitav. If it's written Meitav, it either means only Meitav or Kesef and Shavik Kesef. How could it mean? You know what I'm saying? It's like a little strange. I mean,
but it's only. Why is it strange? Because of the rule of the items. Because he's leaving out an item.
Not because no. But he left out one item that should have been there.
Yeah.
And there's one item that's left out that should not have been there. Again, he says Meitav.
But that's not a problem.
He says Meitav, right? So Rav Nachman says, don't think it's only Meitav, it's also Kesef. So why didn't he say Kesef in the Mishnah? Lav Dafka. Lav Dafka. He wasn't being exact. Okay. Okay. It's also everything we're saying is a little dachak anyway. Okay. Okay. But okay. What do you mean he just left out Kesef and it's Lav Dafka? You can also pay with Shavik Kesef, can't you? Isn't it equal? He says, no. That you can't pay with. It's true that you can pay with Kesef, and that wasn't mentioned, but Shavik Kesef, forget about it. You can't use that, except if you don't have Kesef butter. I have to think myself. It's not so simple here.
It seems like this really brings. I've lost track now of the earlier debates in the Rumia, where the question was why is the word Yashiv there anyway? You know what I mean? So it seems like in this reading, Rav Huna, if I can use the word default again, that he's saying, look, we have another pasuk which gives us a default position of Kesef, but don't use that pasuk to learn something about Shavak Kesef. You see, it would place him before that issue even. You would just say, we have a pasuk with the word Kesef in it, so fine, so that's Lav Dafka Kesef. But don't...
No, not Dafka Meitav.
No, Lav Dafka... Lav Dafka Meitav, right. So Lav Dafka, even though we're beginning with Meitav, that's the Mishnah's starting point. That's the big Chiddush. Lav Dafka Meitav, in other words, we have another pasuk which really defines a very logical, I can't help but thinking, but this type of reading is almost referring to Kesef as a kind of Svara Chitzoina, even though, of course, it's based on the pasuk. They're saying, look, Lav Dafka Meitav. Meitav is the big Chiddush, but it's basically equivalent to Kesef. Kesef is very handy, it's very easy to use, and we have a pasuk that tells us that we can pay with Kesef. So Kesef, can be sneaked in through the back door. It's not a big problem. So then when Rav Nachman says, "Oh, wait a minute," but that pasuk doesn't just tell us about Kesef; it also says Yoshev. So it's Shavah Kesef becomes an issue. So I guess we'd have to say that Rav Huna at that point would say, look, I'm not getting into that issue with you. That's an issue that's Abaya started, and that's not an issue for me. I'm not going to start nitpicking about that pasuk where there's Kesef and Yashiv, and the word Yashiv is complicating Kesef. It's because the problem is that in this other pasuk we have two possibilities. One that is explicit Kesef, and the other one that really is operating at the level of remez, right? Because V'yashiv was, the word V'yashiv itself had to be interpreted as Shava Kesef.
Right.
So Rav Huna is saying, look, I'm not entering into Ramazim with you. To begin with, I'm commenting on the Mishnah. The Mishnah says Meitav, and Lav Davka Meitav, because I have another pasuk that says Kesef. And I don't want to go down that road that was started by the Rumi.
Yeah, but he doesn't go down that road. I mean, what do you mean? Reb Nachman tells him. I mean, before Reb Nachman.
Yeah, before Reb Nachman. So Reb Nachman forces him to go down that road. He says, what about that? So he says, fine, look, you want to go down that road? I'm telling you that there's a clear choice here, that Kesef is what the Mishnah really wants to, is the real Lav Davka here. And the other one is tertiary. It's not really an option. I mean, it is an option, but it's only actually it's not even tertiary. It's secondary here, right? Because there is no three positions. There's only two positions for Rav Huna.
Right.
The first position is either Meitav or Kesef, which are equivalent, and there's a secondary position, which would be based on reading hints into the pasuk. Then we'd have the Shava Kesef.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't. Yeah, okay.
So his major chiddush was that you should not read the Mishnah improperly, and to read it is only Meitav, and that's why he said it includes Kesef. The second issue, okay, you want to force me into where Shava Kesef in the Rem is, so okay, I'll tell you it's only you don't have the two, but that was not my class for today. It happens to be an interesting point. I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, it is something that we could speak about, and I will tell you my position on it. But it was not really my class today. My class today was to tell you that the Mishnah is Lav Dafka, and just don't think it's Dafka. Now you're going to ask me about this other interesting item. Okay, fine. I'll tell you my position on that. But therefore, it's not an interruption. It's pushing the discussion to another level, like you said, the level of remez.
Right. See, this is why I would say that there aren't three items here in Rav Huna's mind. His starting point, he doesn't have three items. He has only an equivalence between two items, Meitav and Kesef, and that's it. And so he's not leaving. It's not like he wouldn't say the Mishnah is leaving out two items. That's only, that idea is something that only Rav Nachman might introduce, and he actually, Rav Huna, would be dismissing it. He would say, no, don't make an equivalence between these three things. There are only two items here that are equivalent. And the Mishnah was just speaking in shorthand. It's saying Meitav, but it implies Kesef. And the third one is really it's a secondary position.
Okay, the only question is why did the Mishnah leave out Kesef?
Well, I mean, in a way that was my question earlier. It's basically the same. My same question is that I asked whether Kesef was part of Svar Chitzoyna, and you said, well, not really, because it comes from a pasuk, right? It's not Svar Chitzoyna.
Well,
that would have been the easy way out to say Svar Chitzoyna. Okay, so why is he leaving it out? Okay, it's not a big deal to leave out Svar Chitzoyna. The Mishnah is coming to give us a chiddush, Meitav. So it's not going to be redundant and tell us Meitav and Kesef. But maybe it could be worked in any way. Maybe Kesef is that. I mean, in our last time we spoke, the idea was suggested that Kesef is a Svar Chitzoyna, and the Chiddush is that the Svar Chitzoyna has to be refactored into the situation. In other words, everybody would have thought logically, by common sense, that you should pay with money. That's just obvious. Pay with money. Easy situation. Pay with money. So the Torah comes and says Meitav. Okay, that's a big chiddush. That interrupts our Svar Chitzoyna. But then, because we've had this interruption, we might think, the Torah is here coming into Dafka to exclude everything else. So no, Kesef has to be reintroduced, refactored in, but even though it is a Svar Chitzoyna, it has to be refactored in simply to accommodate this chiddush of Meitav. But since it is intrinsically, as it were, in and of itself, Kesef is a Svar Chitzoyna, so the Mishnah doesn't have to mention it.
Okay, so now I'm going to take a slightly different tact and make a distinction between what you're doing, which is learning Pesukim and learning Mishnah. I'm going to make a distinction here. What you're doing is fine when you're learning Pesukim because the Pesukim are interacting with each other. It must be a equilibrium, a balance, or of those forces. Somehow those forces have to interact, right? But the Mishnah is not involved in that per se. It could be, but not. It doesn't have to be involved in that interaction. What's my proof? What does the Mishnah actually say? The Mishnah says the tzad shava shebahen. The Mishnah is involved in the commonality of all the avos. And it's telling us that that all the avos have meitav. That's really the message of the Mishnah. The Mishnah is not telling us that you can only pay with meitav haaretz. It's telling us that this pasuk of meitav, as we learned with Tachas Nasini Sham Kesev, extends to all the avos. That's the point of the Mishnah. Now, if that's the point of the Mishnah, that's why the Mishnah says meitav. Now you'll ask me, that's the only thing that extends all over the place? So Rav Nachman says to you, be careful. There's something else that extends all over the place, and that's Kesev. But from a different way, not from the Gezerah Sheva Tachnasina Shalom Kesev. That definitely doesn't do. Tosfos explains without make a mess. So we can only move meitav through that Gezerah Sheva. But from the other way that we're learning, meaning that when the Torah is megala a halacha in a lower case, so then it's going to, or let's say this way, if it allows Kesev in Nezikin, then it's going to certainly allow it in other cases also. Because in Nezikin, since you have meitav, you may think it's very humrah, and that's all you could use. So when the Torah opens up the Nezikin case, which starts out to be very humrah, only meitav, so then it opens it up to Kesev. So then all the Nezikin also will have Kesev. So you might misunderstand the Mishnah because the tachlis of the Mishnah is to tell us Shaba and to say that the only thing that communicates to all the Nezikin is meitav. And Rev Huna is telling you, don't make that mistake because Kesev also, even though it's in one place, a bore, also moves over, albeit with a different machine. Comes along Reb Nachman and says, wait a minute, if Kesev is going to move over to all the avos, then Shavuot Kesev should do the same thing, shouldn't it? And the answer is no, because that was brought in as a ribui. And as a ribui, it was brought in as a level less. And that's only when you don't have the meitav through Takasim Kesev or the Kesev. But the ribui, no, it's going to be a step lower. You hear what I just did? What I did was I said that the way that you learn the Mishnah is not the way you learn the Pesukim. And you have to look at what the goal of the Mishnah is here. The goal of the Mishnah was not to explain the relationship of Meitav and Yashiv and Kesev. That wasn't its goal. That's the goal of the Pesukim and Abaya and Rava. The goal of the Mishnah is to explain a different thing, which is the extent of the din of Meitav, and to tell us that Meitav is actually going to travel through all the Nezikin. Now, if that's the goal of the Mishnah, which is a different goal completely, the Mishnah is talking about the extent of the law, not the law itself. So now, when it came to the extent of the law, Ravuna says, "Wait a minute. Now, you may make an extent. You may make a mistake here, to think that the only thing that travels around is Meitav, because we have a Gezerah Shava Takasim Kesev, and you can't use that to move Kesev around. Only Meitav. So maybe you'll think that's the only thing that moves the other Nezikin." He says, "Don't think so, because Kesev also does, from a different method. The method of, it was Megala in this Chumrah case, but Nezikin will go all over the place also." Says his student, wait a minute, now you're going to have to also say that Shavuot Kesev is now going to move to all the other cases. He says, not so fast. It does move, but not in the same way. It moves in a different way. So what I gain by that is I get out of the problem of having, like you said, the Mishnah has to talk about three elements. That's not, it does have to talk about, but it's not, in other words, it's talking about the issue from a different angle completely. It's talking about the issue about the extent of the law. It's not talking about the law itself. It's how far the law goes. We know that the pasuk is in we know the pasukim, and we know locally what the pasukim say. But the Mishnah is trying to tell us a chiddush in the extent of the law, how they circulate. So Rav Huna is trying to say, if that's the problem, it's a different problem of the pasukim. It's a problem of the Mishnah wanting to extend the law to other cases. Anyway, do you hear what I'm saying there? A little.
That's great. No, it's totally great. It totally makes sense. But then, so it really makes sense of why Rav Huna would be coming so late then in the discussion, because he's really then just addressing directly the language of the Mishnah.
Right, and one of the things that I want to bring up here is the learning of pasukim and the goals of the pasukim are not the goals of the Mishnah. Of course, the Mishnah is learning the pasukim, but it's not. It has a different agenda. It has a different agenda. Like here, its agenda is to show the extent of the law. It's not trying to solve the conflict of the pasukim. That already you'll lose a buyer, use rubber, you everyone you want. But he's trying to talk about extent. Now, also, it comes out very interesting, though. But Rav Huna is going to have to explain. Mamela, you see, and that's why Rav Nachman is a secondary question, really. Rav Nachman is a secondary question. His question is, well, how does Shavah Kesef work? Does it also extend everywhere? The answer is it does, not in the same way.
Can I ask you this thing?
Yeah.
If Rav Nachman's question is secondary, and he, it seems, is really asking it from the standpoint of the Rumia that was addressed earlier. So that would mean that the Rumia itself would have to be secondary. In other words, what I mean is that if as you're saying, Rav Huna is only coming to explain the Mishnah itself, and the whole point of the Mishnah is to establish this. It's not talking about kesef and metav, the relation between those things. It's just the Mishnah just wants to establish the principle that unifies these different avos. That's the main job of the Mishnah, is to say that these avos actually are equivalent, and we're just going to use metav as a kind of peg to unite all of them. And then Rav Huna is coming in and saying, okay, this don't get mesmerized by this peg over here. Yes, metav unites them, but it's lav dafka. It's also equivalent to kesef. So my question is this then: what about the earlier discussion? Are they not talking about the Mishnah? Or rather, are they not addressing what the Mishnah itself is addressing?
Not really. Not really. Actually, it depends what you call primary and secondary. The first question is the Torah. And how do you learn the Pasukim? Now, when I know what the Pasukim say, now there's another question of how far does that information extend to other places? That's a secondary question. It's a nice question. The extent of where does it spread to? The first thing is you have to know what the Pasukim say in and of themselves. Now you want to know how far does this information extend? Where does it go to? Like we said, Kal v'chomer lehegdish, to the 24, which way? What gets moved? So the thing is that the issue of the Pasukim is one issue, which is what the Pasukim mean. The second issue is, okay, now I know what it means, how far does it go? Can you shove a kesef when you get married? Can you shove, well, in the second we're going to be talking about loans, shove a kesef mekach, all these other cases now. How far does that's an extent question. But the first thing you have to start off with what the Pasukim mean. If Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel were talking about some sort of evaluation of damage, we would have never gotten here. The fact that we concluded they're talking about paying back a damage now opened up all these other issues. Okay? So, but the primary, in other words, the primary discussion has to be the Pasukim, what they mean. The secondary part of the discussion is how far do they go? Is this here and nowhere else as we were taught, or is it here and everywhere else? How far does this law extend? That's a secondary discussion. So the primary discussion they had when they spoke about the Pesukim. Now we have to discuss about the Mishnah. Now the Mishnah has its agenda. Now what, as far as extent is concerned, that's a secondary. I mean, it's very important, but it's a secondary issue.
It's amazing that what is a primary issue in the Psukim is a secondary issue in the Mishnah, and vice versa. Like that's what I'm finding interesting here, is that Rav Huna is saying, look, I'm dealing directly with the issue of the Mishnah, and relative to that issue, then the Psukim are a secondary issue.
Yes, right.
I mean, it's also, it makes nice sense, because you would, like I would have thought in my stupidity, that when you have this argument about the two psukim, like when the Ramina was brought in, it might seem like there's a danger that the Mishnah might be upset. In other words, that the Mishnah is being challenged. The Mishnah is saying Meitav, and there's another pasuk which says Kesef. So it seems like it's questioning the Meitav. But actually, as you're putting it, really Meitav is just establishing the commonality of the different avos, and so the Rumya is not even questioning it. It's not coming in conflict with the Mishnah at all. It's just a question of elaborating one point of the Mishnah. And so then Rav Huna, he's coming to the Mishnah with a different question of elaboration. I mean, he's obviously not. He's just coming in to elaborate. That's something that the Mishnah is assuming, which is that the Meitav assumes Kesef, and he just wants to make that explicit. Because the Mishnah, as you say, the agenda of the Mishnah is not to talk about the equivalent, but to talk about what is like Meitav. So he just comes in to explicate that.
Right.
But then it's interesting that the previous discussion also is not in conflict with the Mishnah.
Right.
It's just a different type of explication.
I was thinking of a mushal. Like, say they found penicillin as an antibiotic, right? And it kills a virus, bacteria. It kills bacteria X, right?
Yeah.
So that's very good. It kills bacteria X. Now there's another discussion: is what other bacteria can it kill? How far does this medicine go? Okay, that's called the secondary. If you don't have the first section, if you don't have the primary discussion, then the secondary discussion is absolutely senseless, right? If you don't know that penicillin kills one bacteria, I hope bacteria, so then you can't discuss what else can it work on? Okay, so but once I do know it has one effect, so then I have to talk about the extent. That's a secondary problem. But both of those problems are important. Are equally important, but one follows the other. Mishnah means Mishnah Melech, they say. He's the second in command. You say. The Abba is really the Torah. But the Mishnah has to talk about these type of problems. That's the secondary problem. Once the Torah says what it says, now we have to talk about the extent. Now the Torah, of course, is saying all that. But that's a very good Mishnaic issue. That's an extension issue. That's a very good Mishnah. It's a very good thing for a Mishnah. That's number 2 discussion. Okay, but both of them are necessary. But you have to have number A discussion is what does it say, and number 2 is how far does it go. Anyway, we're throwing out ideas here. Okay, and it's very, very important to do that. And what we're going to do is become more and more educated as we go forward, and then we'll go back to these ideas and see if they hold water or not. But it's this type of thing that's going on over here. It's a very serious discussion, and that's what Tosfos was talking about. And now the Tosfos, let's just go a little further. We'll spend a few more minutes here. The Tosfos. Now he says, Ubesefer Rav Alfas. You see, now the Tosfos is. Of course, Alfas is before them. No segregation between Sephardim and Ashkenazim here. It's just whatever the Torah says, that's what it says. But in the Sefer Alfas parish, the Rav Huna Breda B'Yeshua Reb Papa de La'ayel Pligi Ada Rav Huna Dahacha. Right? That's what we read. Remember what Reb Alfas said, because we have him here. You say, wow, these guys are really in it, as they say, Rev Alphonse, right? He said, Va'afal gab de pligi Rev Huna Rev Asi. On who? On Rev Pop and Rev Huna Rev Yeshua. So he definitely is holding that they're both having the same discussion. This is not Rev Huna is not talking about Mishnah problems and they were talking about Torah problems. No, says the Rif. They're all, just like Rashi, involved in the same debate of Pesukim. That's it. Right?
In other words, the Rif is taking Rashi's approach.
Yeah, actually, right. Yeah, they live. They're almost exactly. They're both in the same approach. That Rav Huna is involved in the Pesukim. Okay. So let's see what says here. Okay. Ubesefer Rab Alphas perish the Rab Huna Bered Rav Yeshua Reb Papa Delayel Pligi Ad Rav Huna Dahacha. And how he spells it, the Tosos. The Inhu, that means Reb Papa and Reb Huna Bered Rav Yeshua Savre Kol Mile Meitav Hu Afilu Subin. That all metaltalin is called great, even Subin. Rav Huna, on the other hand, says, Sover, the lo habi meitav ella okesiv okarka. And Rav Huna disagrees. He says there's only two types of meitav. Meitav haaretz and kesiv. That's it. Upasak, and the Rif is Pesach, Rav Papa, Rav Huna Bered Rav Yeshua, Shehem Basroi. And they're talking about the same issue, which is the relationship of the three elements in the Pesukim. And Rav Huna has a different understanding completely, but they're all in that argument. So the Rif is now forced to understand. He come to a conclusion. What is the halacha, Rabbi? So he says we have a rule. The halacha is like the later, not the later one mentioned, but the later one who lived, which is Rev Papa and Rev Huna Bered Rev Yeshua. But Rabbeinu Tam ein sover king. Bum ba bum 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 bum. Rabbeinu Tam does not hold like the Rif. No, the halacha he's going to say is like Rev Huna. The Rabbeinu Tam so forced that you actually have three different types of when it comes to Kesef and Shavik Kesef. And excuse me, it comes to Meitav Kesef and Shavik Kesef. Three different dinim. Let's see. Nezikin O Kesef Meitav. V'ileis leya filusubin. Whose position is that?
Nezik O Kesef O Meitav. That's Rav Huna.
That's Rav Huna. So he disagrees with the Rif. He disagrees with the Rif.
Yeah.
Right?
And Rashi.
And Rashi. Right? There he is, the young whippersnapper grandson with the 70 Talmudei Chachamim. Right? He was some grandson, I tell you, with 70 Talmudei Chachamim sitting around him, firing kashas left and right. He was some grandson. Okay? But yet, he comes to an independent decision. He says, no, the halacha is not like the Rif, not like Rashi. The halacha is like Rav Huna. Oh, kesef ha-meitam and leis leya filusubin.
Hey, wait a minute. Can we just pause for a moment here?
Yes.
Does this imply, I mean, I don't know if it implies it, but does it imply that Rashi Rashi's psak is like the Rif's? Or is that jumping too much?
No, I think that's exactly what people are saying. That Rashi is holding like the Rif. Now I don't know. Pesach is a little differently because there could be other elements like Basroi and all sorts of other elements going in here. But as far as the fact that everybody is together in this discussion, Rav Huna and the other people, and the halacha is like Rav Papa. But not the halacha. As far as the discussion is that everybody's in the same discussion, he's together with Rashi. Okay?
Yeah.
This quality of Basrai, Rashi doesn't talk about, right? He doesn't bring up this idea of Basrai. He didn't give a Pesach. In the Mishnah, he did say that he explained the Mishnah on Meitav that if you want to give land, you have to give the best, which people are medayik. What do you mean if you want? It means you give other things also. Okay, what other things? Maybe only Kesef, maybe Kesef and Subin. Okay, anyway, we're going to have Rashi. That's why he's a little bit, since he's talking about the battle going on into the Gemara and is not outside telling us what to do explicitly. Sometimes he does do that, not very often, and here's that's not what his goal is. Okay, so we don't have a clear statement about what the halacha is. But we do know one thing, that he agrees with the Rif that Rav Huna is in the same battle. Okay? But comes along, Tam stands up against the Rif, and he says that's not the halacha. And number two is what you said, he also, it doesn't seem that he's saying that they're arguing about the same issue. That means Rav Huna is involved in the same issue. And maybe we're going to see the rush now coming in, and maybe that's because Rabbi Tam holds the other girsa that Rav Huna is talking about the Mishnah. But we don't know yet. These are all very big pieces that have to be put together here. So we have to go very, very slowly. Okay? But anyway, what the Tosfos says about Rabbeinu Tam is that he does not hold. You see, again, where is this? When I make my outlines, the question is where do you put what statement on what? See, Rav Huna, the Tosfos says about the Rif, the Rif Pesaka, Rav Papa, and Rav Huna read Rav Yeshua, the Vasrai. But the Rabbeinu Tam Ein Sover Kain. What does it mean, Ein Sover Kain? Ein Sover, that the halacha is like Repap, right? Or also Ein Sover that they're in the same, that they're all in the same bowl game or not. You see? Not clear.
Right. Yep.
Not clear. Right. That's exactly where the other Rishonim are now going to start talking. That's where the Rush now is going to start talking. Is this statement in the Tosfos only on the last statement that doesn't hold that way, or does it have, or is he talking about the whole shita of the Rif that the two people are arguing?
Oh, the Tosfos doesn't explain what he means.
The Tosfos says what he means. You're supposed to understand. We're dealing here with an expert, We're dealing here with the Nobel Prize winners in physics. So if you don't know math and you don't know, your, basic formulas, what are you doing here? They don't. They say what they say. They think they're being very clear, and if you had the proper ears, you'd hear them very well. But you just have to get the wax out, I guess. My poor daughter, they keep, Baruch Hashem, advancing her. But there's these I think it's Murphy. So who's the guy that said that a person is always advances to the place where they're not suited? There's one of those laws that Murphy's law. So they're getting her involved in this very complex programming, and she's very good at low-level stuff, excellent at low-level stuff. But she never did the high-level stuff. They said, no, if you can do the low-level stuff, you do the high-level stuff. No problem. You figure it out. So she's having anxieties here. It's a different level, So there's the same thing. Lahav, there's the same thing over here. You know what I mean? Oh, yes, sir. You're supposed to understand what I'm saying. This is high-level stuff. Well, okay, not so simple. Did you mean only he pesaks differently, or he also doesn't hold that they're arguing? So this is going to be the issue of the Rosh, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. So we'll just go through this. We'll have to come back to it. But I just want you, this is the end of the Tosfos, the Rabbeinu Tam, the end, only the beginning. We're always in the beginning. But Baruch Hashem, let you see what he says here. So he makes it the same. He says, when it comes to Nezikin, like Rav Huna, O Kesef Meitav, V'Lesle, Kesef Meitav, then you can even use Subin. Now he starts, and this is Tosfos and Rabbeinu Tam. You see, they're not only interested locally, just like we were talking about, is not interested in the local problems of the Pesukim. Now we're talking about the extent. Now what comes along Rabbeinu Tam, and he says, look, when it comes to Balchov, someone who you owe to, Isle zuze lo matzi lesaluke ela bezuze. There's a different law there. If you owe someone money, you can only pay him with money. No shavik kesef, right? No meitav. Well, meitav may even be best, who knows, but you can't give shavik kesef when it comes to paying back a loan. And he brings a raya. We have to get into the raya. In Pesuvus it says, Gabi ahi de telamasa benachre havi. We have to get into that case. Please, next time we'll do it. The isle zuze lo yomer le zil tarachu zaben vase le zuze. However, the iles le zuze. What happens if the Baal Chov does not have money? So the Malva, the person who's loaned him the money, cannot say to him, go and you sell your subin and bring me money. Interesting? So the Baal Chov does not have the din of meitav, that's for sure. And also, money is the first priority. And if he doesn't have money, so then he can give Shavah Kesef. Kedama Harsam, as he's going to prove over there. We have to go over into that case a little to look at it. Let's get the next case. Just again, broad strokes before we get involved. And what about the Lokeach Shenimsa Mekachach Mekachtos? You buy something, and it was supposed to, be, a Rolls Royce, and it turns out that it was a Volkswagen. So you want your money back. So now Kamodin Kane Din. So the din is the same, that the person who pulled the wool over your eyes has to return money. He can't give you Shavah Kesef. Okay? If he doesn't have money, so he can give you Shavah Kesef, but he has to give you Kesef. So both the Baal Chov and the person who is the Mechachtos person have to pay money. And the person who is paying back has to back in money, and the person who is paying back because he tricked someone in a deal also has to pay back in money. But if they don't have money, they can use Shavah Kesef. Here's the third category called what happens if you're workers? What can you do with your workers? So there, Omale Zil Tarek V'Zavin V'Asei there, with a worker, the worker has a right to say to you, I don't want subin. You go out, run around, get me money. And he brings a raya, the muchmach behabayis v'aliyah, de'en yochol lomar tol ma shasi sarecho. You can't say to your worker, take some grapes from the field for your work. You have to give him money. Okay? So you see now this is a new vista that Rabbeinu Tam is opening up. He's first of all talking about our local issue, who the Pesach is. He's going to say Rav Huna. But then he sees all of Shas, and he wants to tell you what is in and what's out in each of these areas where we use money. Okay? We have to say, what's the Sada Shavra of all these areas? How come we didn't talk about Kedushin? These are all interesting questions that we have to raise. Okay? So here I just wrote a chart here. Nezikin, according to Rabbeinu Tam, Kesef Meitav are equal choices. If you don't have, you can use Subin. You can't tell the Mazik to sell you Subin and give you money. When it comes to Baal Chov and Mechaktos, you must give him money first. If you don't have money, no Meitav, of course. Meitav is out. It's only a din in a Zikin. But you can, money is the first thing that you have to give. If you don't have money, you can give him Subin, and you can't tell him to go out and change the Subin for money. But when it comes to the Poel, you must give him Kesef, and you have to, if you owe him money, and sell your Subin and give it to him. So that's the Rabbeinu Tam. We have a lot of interesting work to do. Okay?
He's getting this from everywhere in the Gemara, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in different places, obviously.
Oh, yeah. He sees it all at one time.
But
he's here, there, and everywhere.
But he is. But his first, oh, my screen just died here.
Who?
His first one, no? Okay, he's back. Okay. It just shut down for a second. The first one he's getting locally, right? Just
yes.
From the Zikin.
Right here.
And that, but but he's getting it from this reading of Rav Huna. He's following Rav
Correct.
Huna's position.
Correct.
Okay. Not just, well, I guess it doesn't matter which reading of, at this point it's still not clear which reading of Rav Huna he's going with, all right?
Right.
Whether he sees Rav Huna as a commentator on the Mishnah or simply as somebody who's coming in with the final opinion on the Rumi.
Excellent. Excellent. We're going to have a
We still
cliffhanger.
can't tell. We still can't tell.
For
Oh, yeah.
that, we'll have a cliffhanger for next week. We'll have to see
Okay.
opinions, but the rush. He's going to say what Rashi says, and he's going to bring Rev Alphas, and he's going to bring Rabbeinu Tam, and he's going to start talking. Here's all of Rabbeinu Tam, and he's going to ask, well, why didn't Rabbeinu Tam hold like the Rif? And which statement is he arguing on, and how did he learn? Yeah, you're right in the ball game. That's it. Now you know, and this is what we're trying to demonstrate in this class, is how each piece forces the next piece. You see? It's mukhrach. I mean, if you're in the piece, you know that these are the next issues you have to ask. You see, they write what they write. They expect that the people, understand what they're writing. But okay, when you're in that advanced, calculus class, everything is understood. But the guys that are just trying to catch up the ball, they have these problems and exactly what's being said. But everyone, Baruch Hashem, we have these wonderful teachers who are trying to bring us into the central discussion. Okay, we just have to develop a sensitivity to hear what they're talking about. Yeah, what would you want to say?
The Rosh is the father of the Torah?
Yes. The Rosh is the father of the Torah.
So the Rosh, and the Rosh writes at great length, and he's like Rashi. He's not like Rabbi Nofas.
No, he writes at great length. Yes, no, he spells things out, right. He's going to spell out this whole problem. He's going to bring back, for him, he has to talk about Tosfos, Rabbeinu Tam, Rif. He has to talk about these people. That's his job. That's, he has to explain that to the next generation, what they're talking about, because they're writing at a very high level. So he has to spell it out. And that's what he does. Then his son comes along and says, Abba was, the greatest. Let me take his halachas that only deal with practical issues, because, when Mashiach comes, the Rambam wrote about it, but I want to know what we do practically, you see. So he writes the Arbiturim, 4 books, Orach Chaim, Yeridea, Even Ezra, and Mishpat, okay? But he keeps the style of analysis going, and he brings down the various opinions. Comes along Rev Yosef Cairo, and he says, wait a minute, this is getting out of hand now. Generations are going down. I'm going to have to say, instead of talking about the analysis, I'm going to do a Rambam move and tell you what to do. Forget about why they said what they said. Now, before he did that, anyway, there's a lot to, I guess there's a lot to see here, That's why we're doing this, I really, and I told my wife, this is I didn't think I would get to the level where I have like a life goal, you know what I mean? But this really is a life goal for me, is to really show each level and why each level is a necessary part of the discussion, and why they must say what they say, and how they say what they say, and what problems they deal with. And to understand that it's all one unit, as we talked about the Vilna Gaon. When he learned the Chumash, it was everything together. There was except it was Masudar. It wasn't a mess, but it was Masudar. I mean, he was very, very clear. He could put everything back from the Nosei Kem, the Shulchan Aruch, all the way back in one unit called the Chumash. That's his mind was so great, and see all the balances going on simultaneously. It's like, okay, that's what it is. Big people, giant people. So, Baruch Hashem, we're seeing every step of the way what the problems are, how they're being handled, what each generation is going to now explain to the next generation and why. Okay, and that's the system. Once you see one slice of it, So we say, Tzeva Lomed, get a Chavrusa, get a Rebbe, keep now go through all of Shas, wonderful. You have to learn the whole system, okay? But at least you've seen one section. So many people, unfortunately, I don't want to say sorry, many people I speak to, unfortunately, just they see a leaf here, a tree here, a building here, and they get the impression that it's a balagan. You know, I mean, it's just little dots all over the place with no form, and it's chaval, because no one ever presented the information to them in a systematic way, because again, what can you do? You have 40 kids in a class, 35 kids in a, what can you do? What can you tell me? Can each, this is such delicate stuff and so deep and so time consuming, and we ourselves are holding ourselves back and giving tentative understandings, you know, as we go along, just because we want to see the whole project. It's very hard to do. It's not easy to teach Torah and to understand Torah. It's not an easy task. It requires a very high level of skill. And besides the fact of Kedusha and Tahara and Tefillah, that's definitely, but I'm just in the raw skills, it requires a very, very acute mind. So Baruch Hashem, we're going through each step, and and by the way, I tell you all the time that this is all the Nachlas David, which is a student of the Vilna Gaon, is the one that opened this up for me. I couldn't have done this by myself. Okay, he was the one that put down the system on it, just like the Rush. You see, the Rush is telling you, look, they're all very clear. They're telling you who the players are, what the problems are, and now they're going to say the next move, which is, okay, which one do I think is holding a more solid position? But the Nachlas David, who's all the way down there after the Gaon, so he put together this whole piece, but in a very, very brief way, of course. And what I did is I slowed down the very quick moving frames, because these people are, you know, experts and they think quickly and fast, so that we can see each frame and how each frame is moving from one step to the next. And then that's it. Then then say below made, that's it. But at least you saw real Torah and not just, you know, what my friend Avram Dov calls the cup version. So Baruch Hashem. Okay, so we'll stop here. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll pick up on Sunday. Good time? Are you open to Sunday?
Sunday night, yeah.
Okay.
I really want, yeah, for sure, absolutely. I really, at the end of this, I really want to help you put this into a book. This really needs to be there needs to be, I think, first of all, a manual, and you know, just that. I mean, before other things are done, I think it has to be just in a book format, a manual format.
I agree.
To take a person through this cross section. You know?
I agree. If we can do that, that would be a tremendous. I'm not very good at writing. I write. I did these articles. I write because every word to me, you know, is very hard to get out. Well, I talk easier than writing. But writing's an art, and after I get the material down, so then it's a question of streamlining it and organizing it and making it in the form that will. Be'ezrat Hashem, if we have a bracha, that'd be fantastic. Because I agree. As a book. It's very, 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 very necessary. It's a manual on how to learn. As I told you also, one of the things that there was a few problems that I want to confront in what I would like to hand over to the next generation. One is the quick moving, non-understanding of the form, but the other one, more deeply here, is the separation between the abstract ideas and the application in the Gemara itself. Like you can learn Tfunos and Higayon, and their abstractions over there, which don't have a interplay with the material itself, the raw material. So that's one of the things that I really am looking forward to, and it's not so simple to do that because it's again requires a lot of thought and a lot of skills. Everything comes down to thinking, and thinking takes time. There's nothing you can do with it. So somehow we're going to put those two things together, and with the bracha of Hashem, you know, we'll do it.
I think stylistically it makes sense. I mean, this approach is really, it's indispensable, and I think stylistically, the way, you know, I'll just tell you from something from my studies. There's actually a Jewish sociologist named Claude Lévi-Strauss, and he did this groundbreaking study of so-called primitive cultures. He wrote a book called The Primitive Mind, and he said you have to understand that the primitive mind, and he's talking about people like witch doctors and things like that. So he says the primitive mind works like a, he uses a French word, bricoleur, which means like a handyman. So he says, look, the primitive mind has a problem, and the tools pop up or present themselves to him as he needs them. So I think that would be the rule to follow here, is that the Darkei Gemara and the Derech Tevunos only needs to be brought in one step, as you've done with me, actually, right? You only bring them in as it's necessary.
Right.
So you don't necessarily need to translate the whole, that's also a valuable process, but I think this is even more valuable because you're actually going along with it, and you just pull the tools in as you need them. So
right. Bezat Hashem.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see you next week. What do you mean? Sunday, Bezat Hashem.
Sunday night, yeah.
Okay. Well, have a great week.
Have a good one. Okay.
Whatever's left, a good Shabbos already. Good job.
Yeah, exactly. Good Shabbos, exactly.
Kol tov.